Hello and welcome to another episode of Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. It's me and Byron for another bonus episode midweek between the previews and between the reviews and preview. And as mentioned in the previous review, that we said we are going to talk about some trade deadline action, which was actually a really fun one for once, and also give out our mid-season awards. Unfortunately, Paul can't join us just because of time zone issues. But me and Byron will be able to slag off his picks anyway. So yeah, let's dive straight into it, Byron. To be honest, I think it was actually a fun trade deadline, and we'll talk about the biggest one, which came about, which was the Jets on the fire sale. So Sauce leaves on a jet plane to Berlin. Months after signing a huge contract, Star CB is shipped off to Indianapolis for 2 first-round picks and AD Mitchell going the other way. Sauce wakes up at 1-7, and he managed to go to sleep at 7-2. Byron, how big of a shock was this, and like your overall reaction of this? Yeah, I think this is a massive trade when you look at it in the grand scheme of things.
Definitely, yeah. Did not expect to see Sauce Gardner getting traded yesterday. You kind of think you're going to see players who are coming towards the end of their contract, players who fell out of form or fell out of favor with the GM/coach. You don't expect a superstar at any position who's just signed a 5-year contract, I believe, to be shipped off with no rumor beforehand. No, Sauce Gardner wasn't on social media deleting the Jets from his feed or coming out in the media and saying he was frustrated. I'm sure he was. I'm sure he is. The Jets have been appalling this year. Like you said, 1-7 when he woke up. We'll see for the Indianapolis side of it. I love teams taking shots. I think more and more teams should gamble more and more. You're going to be picking in the last 8 picks of the round, you would hope, in 26. And you certainly hope that's going to be the case in 27 as well. And they need defensive help. They have Kenny Moore at safety, got Traveris Ward at CB as well. And this is just adding strength to that position where they've needed strength over the years. And I think they finally got it this year. So I love it. Be aggressive, push your chips in. Don't know what Chris Ballard's long-term job security is. We had, suspicions of that in the summer. But, if you're the Colts' new ownership, I think you have to be happy with how this season's gone. And you let him use them first-round picks. That's what, if you're a good team, that's what you want them for. You'd love to draft an all-pro rookie at the 27th pick every year, but it's very unlikely. So I love it for truthfully, I think it's a win-win trade. It's very weird for the Jets, but I think they're going about it the right way. Nothing really matters, because I've seen a lot of reaction is like, oh, what? So they can draft a good young player like Sauce Gardner. And it's like, yeah, but he'll be under salary cap control. Like, the Jets aren't contending this year or next. Obviously not this year. And it's one of the things I come back to a lot of these bad teams who trade good players away. Is like, nothing really matters in the NFL unless you have a quarterback or a play caller who can make up that deficiency. And the Jets don't have either right now. So I don't mind them kicking the can and moving on from Sauce Gardner for a high-end return. They got 2 firsts with Jamal Adams a few years ago, and within 1 year, that was looking like an incredible deal. Yeah, the Jets never won a Super Bowl on the back of it, but Jamal Adams never won a Super Bowl either. So really, what's the difference? They got Garrett Wilson out of it. They got Vera Tucker out of it in that trade. I think if you get 2 pieces like that in 26 and 27, I think you'd be delighted.
Yeah, it's certainly, I agree. I think it's a win-win. I think the Colts are like a win-now mode. When you look at that squad as an overall, it's not like it's a young squad. Coming to the year, we weren't that high number. That was mainly the quarterback position. But you look at like if I was Buckner and a few of us who are certainly getting up there, who they're not going to be able to keep because they're probably going to pay Daniel Jones next year. And it's putting a lot of trust into Daniel Jones that he'll continue next year, that you make this trade because you're probably going to sign him in the summer. He's going to get a decent amount of money. And like you said, you're not going to get a player of Sauce calibers at 27. Like, you hope, you wish. But if we went through the last 10 years worth of pick around that at that point, most of them probably flamed out after a couple of years. And Sauce, he's 25 as well, so he's still young. Obviously, he's in his contract sorted. I think this year was like an extension to his rookie year, so it's not too bad, and they'll work around it. Obviously, it's a gamble with the cornerback position, because you just mentioned Jamal Adams. Like, they can be so up and down, and he can have he's when you look at his stats, he's played well this year, but it's not been the source of old. So you're also gambling on that he's able to keep this high quality all the way through. But they've got a nasty looking defensive back now, and when you look at the AFC, it's not as loaded as the NFC. So why not? Why not go for it? Why not put all the chips in? And they could end up at the Super Bowl. When you look at how good they're playing, there's the teams you play. You would say, the Chiefs, the Bills, maybe the Ravens if they come back. It feels like the NFC is a lot stronger, where there's a lot more teams to go through. Whereas the AFC, you how they're getting on, they get a one, they might get a 1 seed, and then you just have to win 2 games in the Super Bowl. And having Sauce there certainly helps. So yeah, I think you're putting a lot of faith into Daniel Jones and everything around that, and vice versa. I feel like the Jets. I feel like they put a lot of trust in their head coach and GM, because it feels like they wouldn't agree to this if there weren't assurances to be like, oh, we're going to get rid of our our best defender and also our second best defender, which we'll quickly move on to now. With Dallas gets a big D for their line. So Jets continue their fire sale by trading franchise D lineman Quinnen Williams to the Cowboys for a 2026 second and a 2027 first, which, with the Cowboys having theirs and the Packers, it's whichever is the highest, which I think is a nice little wrinkle for the Jets. And they also get Mazi Smith. As a Cowboys fan, Byron, I'll throw it over to you. How do you, from my point of view, I think the Jets did well in this one as well.
Yep.
How do you feel the Cowboys did? Like, are you happy with this trade? Because Jerry said he promised big stuff, and he's certainly got a big man to walk through them doors in Dallas.
Yeah, I think Quinnen Williams is a really, really, really good player. I don't know if I'd have given up a first and a second for him. I just don't know if he's big enough impact every week like a Chris Jones is at defensive tackle, or Dexter Lawrence is. Like, I think he's a really good player. He's probably a top 5 or 6 D tackle in the league, but I don't think he's a game changer, and I don't think he's a game wrecker. And when you look at the entire package, basically swapping out Micah Parsons for Quinnen Williams and picks moving a little bit here and there, I would rather have Micah Parsons and lose a little bit in pick compensation than have Quinnen Williams, who, again, I think is a very good player at his position, but I don't think a D tackle is what takes you over the edge into being a win now team. Logan Wilson, I think, is basically an afterthought. He's going to beat out Kenneth Murray. He's going to beat out Sanborn, because those are below replacement level players. So he's going to, I presume, play a lot at linebacker, but I don't think Quinnen Williams is going to fix the Cowboys defense this year. I think they're still a real outsider to make the playoffs. I think that's unlikely. So what is the hope? That next year they go all in on defense because the offense is sorted?
I would say that obviously it feels like a 2026 move, especially how they lost on Monday as well. It feels like if they had won that game, then you get Quinnen Williams and you're like, oh, wow, this could be special. The problem with the Cowboys they've actually got a decent front when you look at it. I know they lost passes, but they've got some good pieces around there. You're just missing that star man, which obviously they traded away. So getting Quinnen Williams in to fix that defensive tackle position in the run game, that's massive. The problem is right now, the back end of the defense is just atrocious. It's just funny when you look at, we'll just talk about cornerbacks of how up and down. 2 years ago we were like with Diggs and Bland, we were like, well, they're sorted at cornerback for the next 5 years, and everything's going to be hunky dory, and they've been absolutely burned this year. So you hear about that Quinnen Williams probably going to do much, but I think what it does do in terms of next year for the draft, you manage to keep your first round pick next year is like the line sorted. We don't have to try and draft someone like a defensive tackle like they've done with Mazi Smith and a few others to try and fix that issue with a rookie. You're getting a player he's only 27 years old. He feels like he's been in the league forever. He's a former All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler. That position's sorted now. You can maybe get a few veterans to help him out. And now it's like, is there, in the 10th, 11th pick, that's where usually the top cornerback goes, unless they're like Sauce Gardner level. Can you now get that sorted and focus on that? Because it feels like the line's sorted, offensive line's pretty decent as well, and the offense around it. If they keep George Pickens, you've got 2 great wide receivers. You've got a decent running back, but it feels like you can pick up running backs. So then you can focus on a different position of defensive tackle, which they've not been able to draft well, especially the last few years. So I do like it that way. So it's definitely going forward. Obviously, like you mentioned, when you look at a trade package, but with Parsons, it feels like they're making up for that kind of thing where you see you lose Parsons and Mazi Smith, and you get Quinnen Williams and the other defensive tackle, Kenny Clark, and you're just moving up. Maybe with how the Cowboys are going to end, and we expect the Packers to probably do a lot better. It might be like 20 to 30 different. Like you've basically gone up that much just to swap them out. And you probably would have passed it because he's younger. Like I said, he affects every single player. He's probably the best pure pass rusher in the league. So when you look at it like that, yes, they've not done well. And it feels like they've just done this as like, it's like on a whim that they're like, oh, we need to fix something. Let's do it. Like a bit too, not planned it out well. However, if they did nothing, then they would have had nothing. And it's similar with, and I'll flip back to the Jets as well. Like I think, because it sounded like Williams wanted to leave, that, you know, the guy who seemed the happiest man on the football field most of the time just wasn't happy. And he wanted out of New York, which, doesn't surprise me. And so I think they've done really well to get 3 first-round picks in the second round and got a few players like Eddie Mitchell's pretty a nice little wide receiver. Be interesting to see what does at the Jets.
I think those are the exact type of players that you should throw in.
Yeah.
If you're a bad team, take shots on young players who have draft capital.
Of course,
Eddie Mitchell was top 10 in ESPN's Open Score last year. I always stand for players like that. I'll always want to see him get another chance because you see what they can do. Mazi Smith has been nothing but a bust in Dallas, but he was taken at the end of the first round. He had a second-round grade on him. Maybe it's something, maybe it's nothing, but I just think that's exactly what teams should do. Don't reach for old veterans who aren't going to give you anything in 2 years' time. Get players who maybe you strike lucky and they are actual contributors to your team. The Jets need a wide receiver.
Yeah, and only thing I worry for the Jets is that, like, yes, they've done the right thing. You've got now, 5 first-round picks in the next 2 years. Try and get your quarterback, and then you build from there. Yep. But we've been here with the Jets. It feels like a couple of years ago they had 3 draft picks. The Browns had a number of draft picks. The Raiders had 3 draft picks a few years ago, and it's sometimes like it's the franchise. It's not like the picks. And you always think like they just need to get that quarterback. But they had Sam Darnold, and look at him now. They had Gino, and look what happened. Obviously not this year, but years before. They've had quarterbacks who's played for them, and then they've gone elsewhere and done great. The Browns got Baker, and they thought, oh, they're going to be sorted. And now, look at him now in Tampa. So sometimes it's like, you can have all these draft picks and they hit on these kind of players, and then you're trying to replace on the, like you said, on the rookie contract. But it's more of a risk of we know these are superstar players, because there's been plenty of players picked at number 4 all the way through who have just not worked out. So it's no guarantee, and it depending where they sit, especially if like Dallas finished like mid-teens, the Colts finishing way low.
I mean, the Colts are 32.
That's what I mean. Yes, so then like if we get a 32, I mean, it's always a gamble. Like you trade away like a top quality player for the next 5 years, and you might get nothing for it. So it's a gamble, but I think it was worth it. I think, like you said, they're not close. I was curious if they would get rid of other players. I was going to mention this later, might as well now. Obviously, Garrett Wilson, they said it was a no-go. He wasn't leaving. Felt like Breece Hall was, like some of his social media posts. I don't know if you saw them, and he quickly deleted them afterwards. Surprised he didn't leave. Jermaine Johnson, I think they wanted the second.
On Breece Hall, sorry, Joe. The report on Breece Hall was they wanted the 3rd and Kansas City offered us 4th. And someone actually tweeted, I presume Breece Hall deleted this like as well. Someone tweeted, I can't believe we paid a 3rd-round pick for Kadarius Toney, but Breece Hall isn't worth it. And Breece Hall liked that tweet, which I thought was great. I presume he deleted the like as well, though.
Yeah. And it's and I think it was Jermaine Johnson as well. I think the 49ers were interested, and a few of us. They wanted a 2nd for him, and it was a bit too expensive for. I think there's a few teams who were poking around looking for an edge rush, and they didn't want to give up a 2nd, especially like someone like 49ers, where they weren't expecting an amazing season this year with what they had, so why give up future assets for someone like that.
So you don't get injured anyway.
Exactly, yeah. If you came to the 49ers.
Edge of the 49ers are out visiting a hospital every 2 weeks, apparently. So
So that's what the Jets full on fire sale. And it's crazy when you think about the Parsons only got 2 first rounders, and some of the players are going for now. Obviously, trade deadline increases that what picks you get, which is always surprising when you think it's a bit like when it's during the draft, like don't want to give up a 6th because like we could get someone, and then all these trades is like, just take a 5th for this player, we'll gamble on this player.
Yeah, you see players like, we'll just give you a 3rd to move up 10 spots. It's like a 3rd.
Yeah,
a 3rd will get you a starter in week 8 of the season.
Yeah,
but
I know.
They fall in love. And Andrew Brandt, who's former executive at the Packers, he's a great Twitter follower, and his saying essentially is deadline spur action, and it's so true in the NFL. Like,
It feels like he didn't though, like 10 years
no,
ago.
this is
It was always like it was always like random like nobody players, and then now it's just like I feel like they've done the NBA and a few other leagues have spurred them on. So we'll move on to the next trade, which might be my favorite one, and it's super exciting. I think it could sneakily be yours, and it might make you a 12th man again and start spotting them. Seattle Top Gun Darnold feels the need for speed. Saints trade for speedster Seattle for 2026 4th and 5th round picks. I think this is a great one in terms of Clint Kubiak from Saints, and you talk about it quite a lot, like last year, the first 2 weeks, about what Shaheed was doing, and now bringing him over to Seattle. You've got JSN, he's going to be a clear number 2. Maybe Kupp doesn't play as much because they play a lot of personnel. And one player I'm disappointed for because I've been enjoying him this year, and I know you've put a lot of bets on, is Torrey Holton player time, because it feels like similar kind of players, but you'd rather have more than less. So yeah, what do you think of this trade? Are you now a Seattle fan again? I know Geno left, broke your heart, but Sammy Darnold and Shaheed together.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm in the Darnold hive now. No, yeah, I absolutely love it. I think this is an incredible move. Big Shaheed fanboy, long time. Always rated him as a weapon. Thought he should always get more work with the Saints. It looked like he was going to get there last year, but obviously broke his leg. But to start the year, he was incredible. He's been very good again this year in rough circumstances, let's be obvious about it. But this year, through 9 weeks of the season, he has the 3rd best open rate in the league behind Diggs and Shakir. He's opened 53% of his routes. Seattle are the only team now with 2 of the top 7. JSN is at 46.8%, despite seemingly getting triple covered on every play. Well, he probably won't be triple covered anymore because Rashid Shaheed will take the top off every defense in the league. And I think Clint Kubiak will know to use him creatively. We talked very briefly on the review about the Seahawks and the Rams being top 10 in early play action rate. Well, that's only going to continue. You're going to get Shaheed in motion. I think you'll get Troy Horton in motion. You might see less 2 tight end sets. We might see more 3 wide receiver sets with Shaheed coming in, because I think they'll still want Cooper Kupp in there when fit to do like the dig out routes and his blocking assignments. But yeah, you feel the need for speed. You feel the need for Shaheed. And shout out to my one of my favorite content creators in the NFL, Cootadoodle, who is a huge Saints fan, huge Rashid Shaheed fan. She has 3 signed jerseys from when she met him at a Fantasy Life event last year, I believe. And she's already getting her Rashid Shaheed jerseys ordered because fandom carries you everywhere. And she wrote a very cool article on Fantasy Life about that, if anyone should check it out. But yeah, I think it's a great fit for Seattle. And just another one, a 4th and a 5th. I know he's out of contract at the end of the year, but he won't be cheap, but he's re-uppable. Seattle.
I think it's a good deal. Yeah, and I think it's also a good deal for the Saints, because it didn't seem like they were overly interested in signing him, or it may have been like, well, don't want to give him the money he deserves. So to get a 4th and a 5th for a player like you said who's out of contract, so I think again it's another win-win. I think Saints this season's done. Again, they need a quarterback. Why not get some draft picks for players who and probably not going to be there next year, and you need to start rebuilding. It's not like they're going to go anywhere this year. So I think it's good for both. And just funny enough, when you said about the jersey, I did forget to mention, I don't know if you saw the video, the Jets fan, the dad just bought his kid a Sauce Gardner jersey.
I didn't.
And he told him to say, gave him the jersey, and an hour later he had to tell him that he was no longer on the Jets. And the kid was like, well, I'm a Colts fan now. So it makes complete sense. But
oh my God, no.
You'd be devastated. But and probably the dad's devastated, because it probably would cost him $100 cheaper if he just waited an extra day. So
yeah,
there you go. Right, let's move on to the next trade. So Jacoby's finally leaving Las Vegas. Finally, they're probably the happiest trade player in the league. Mayers gets his wish and ends up in the swamp as Jags trade a 2026 4th and a 6th draft pick for the wide receiver. Bills were also apparently interested in Jacoby to get another wide receiver. But yeah, what does this say about the Jags? I'm really interested. Obviously, I know they've had a few injuries. Obviously, Hunter's gone down. I think Brown went down the other day. But coming into the year, it felt like they were set at wide receiver, and that was one of their strongest positions. And now they're trading the 4th and the 6th, which is not nothing. And Mayers has not been amazing this year. I know he had a good year a couple of years ago, and he's not like a high end. He's probably going to be the number 2, maybe the 3 when if Hunter makes a progression, and depending on what happened with Brian Thomas, we'll talk about that later on. where do you see like Jacoby fitting in, and do you see this as a good move for the Jags with some of the injuries and like where they're going with this? And are they like a win now team with this trade?
I think they are. I don't love it, but I think he provides immediate relief. But I think a fourth and a sixth for immediate relief because he is out of contract at the end of the year. I think it's a little rich for a player who, like you say, hasn't been good this year. Whether that's because he's sulking because he didn't want to be in Vegas or not, or because Geno was at such a poor level, I'm not too sure. But I mean, Trevor Lawrence isn't exactly pulling up trees. One thing Jacoby Myers does have is very reliable hands, which has been a big issue for Brian Thomas, been an issue for Diamond Brown throughout his career. Parker Washington kills it whenever he gets an extended opportunity, but they obviously don't see him as anything more than a role player, I think, in Jacksonville. So yeah, I think a fourth and a sixth is maybe a little high. But I mean, if they win a playoff game and he's a big contributor down the stretch for the rest of the season, you can kind of see it. And if they re-up him as their wide receiver free, because I think Diamond Brown is on a 1-year deal at $10 million. If you give Jacoby $10 million, I'd rather have Jacoby Myers long term than Diamond Brown. So I can see the benefit there if you get him in the building and you like him. I mean, you're obviously not going to franchise tag him, but wide receivers are hard to come by. They're very good ones, seldom enter free agency. So if they can use this an opportunity to extend him and get some good play out of him over the next few years, I think it's absolutely fine. I'm kind of not that convinced that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think it definitely depends on extension, because I think if he leaves this year and goes elsewhere, where he thinks he might get a bigger contract, then it's like you're given a fourth and a sixth for half a season, and if he,
yeah, and I don't think he's not going to blow the doors off for like a comp pick. He's not going to return you a third round next year. Like he's not going to get that kind of money.
And it's also like, do I see the Jags going like the mice? But like, I also don't like. I'm not a huge Trevor Lawrence fan. I'm not a huge Jags blogger. I think that they've got weaknesses and. But he might fill that like Godwin role, which was at the Bucks, and try and play that way, and maybe him playing the slot more will free up Hunter when he does come back. When they're not just saying you just play the slot and that's all you do. It's more okay. That's Jacoby Meyer's job, and then they might actually use Hunter a little bit more. That what we expected, especially coming into this year, we thought he was going to be the best wide receiver in the class, and he's not being that whatsoever. I wouldn't even say was he the top 3. Think about it, it's probably not.
No, probably not.
So
every week we do get to hear they're going to use him more.
Yeah,
we get to hear that soundbite every week. So I mean, he's top 1 in that.
Yeah. So yes, that's Jacoby finally leaving Vegas, and then something we always say every single time: Howie does it again. This is the last one we'll super focus on. We'll just quickly mention the ones later. But Eagles boost their defense by trading for edge rusher Jalen Phillips for a 3rd. They get Jair Alexander from the Ravens for a 6th and a 7th, and Michael Carter II from the Jets for a player. It was like a player swap and a pick swap as well. I think Mechie went back, and then it's a 6th and 7th. So nothing much. So I think the main storyline is this is probably the Jalen Phillips one. I think that's a great pickup. I think for a 3rd, when you look at who was available in terms of edge rushers around the league, he was probably like top 3. I would say it was like. I was curious if Bradley Chubb would go. I think that was another name floated out, and it's which one you wanted off the injuries of the previous years. So to get him for a 3rd, and that could be such a big upside when you look at how the Eagles' defensive edges have been playing. That they need like more rotation, and they need someone who to make impact. So I think if he comes in and he becomes a starter, I think that's well worth a 3rd. You're not going to get many solid starters in the 3rd round. Jay Alexander, we'll see. I think that's a bit like, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow Vic Fangio makes him into a Pro Bowl player again. But also, if he can't get the Ravens a defensive back who picked him up for basically a freebie, and they've managed to get 6th and 7th. So I also don't mind for the Ravens, because I think he only played 2 games, and they were like, nah, let's leave him out. Yeah, after he's like, good mates with Lamar, and they're ready to get rid of him. I think that says a lot, but I also wouldn't be surprised with Vic Fangio. How do you feel about this? Obviously, within the division, do you think Howie's done it again and we sat here winning the Super Bowl and Jalen Phillips gets the sack to win it?
Quite possible. I think the Jalen Phillips move is great. He's not a player who's ever hit double-digit sacks, but he's got 8.5, 7, 6.5. He's got 3 already this year. He's just such a useful contributor. Obviously came off that brutal injury last year. So, yeah, I think for a 3rd round pick, I think that's kind of a no-brainer for a good team. And again, these are the exact type of picks I think good teams should be happy to throw away. They'll get some kind of compensation picks for players they've lost, I'm sure. So really, they're not going to be losing a huge amount of their overall draft capital because Howie, is very smart and builds his teams really well. Alexander and Carter are just total gambles, I think, but that's absolutely fine. They need to take shots. While Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell are fit, it's not as huge of an issue, but they do need much more rotation options in that defensive backfield. So, yeah, I think Phillips is just an absolute smash. And the other two, do I think they'll be big hits? No, probably not. But I think at the price he's paying for them, it's absolutely worth a shot.
Yeah. And then we'll just do a quick roundup of the other ones, just quickly mention. So Drummond Jones went to the Ravens for conditional 5th. Trevor Penning went to the Chargers for a 6th-round pick. And Joe Tryon Chuyinka to the Bears in a pick swap. And yeah, I just wanted to mention just some of the players who I was rumored that they could be moving, but they didn't end up going. So we've already mentioned Breece Hall and Jermaine Johnson. There was rumors about Waddle possibly going. AJ Brown to the Patriots was had been going on for the last few weeks. Deebo Samuel and Von Miller from the Commanders suddenly just popped up with the Commanders, which was happened with Jaden Daniels. And yeah, I just mentioned Bradley Chubb as well, who was another Dolphins who they felt like they may get rid of. So there's a couple there. So any comment on any of the trades actually happened, or the players who didn't move where you were surprised they didn't, or you never thought it would happen?
Yeah, Draymond Jones, I think, is a smart pick by the Ravens, similar to Jalen Phillips, but a little worse, obviously. Very consistent, again, always gets sacks, even if they're not at double-digit numbers. Penning to the Chargers, I think, is kind of funny because he's not being good. He's moved into guard this end of last season into this season. I did dig up a stat. This is from Scott Spratt at Sports Info Solutions. He has the 5th worst pass block rate at guard in the NFL this year. So hopefully move to tackle will help him and not get Justin Herbert killed. I really hope so, because I hate seeing Justin Herbert get killed when Joel isn't there, and obviously Rashawn Slater isn't there, but I have very low confidence in that. But it's a very low price to pay, so it is what it is. Big players. I didn't really think AJ Brown would get moved. I thought I felt a little far-fetched, really. Again, they're in a Super Bowl window, clearly. I think he might get moved at the end of the season. As he's getting older, as he's obviously a little disgruntled, as they ultimately want to pay more players. They've got Jalen Carter coming up who will want a bag, a big one. So yeah, nothing too surprising to me. I thought Washington might move a few players because I think, again, they've got such an old team and they don't have a huge amount of extra picks coming up anytime soon. Obviously, their team building strategy worked last year in the short term, but even last year we talked about going into the season. Obviously, we didn't expect them to be in the NFC Championship game, but Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner, all old players. There's a lot more, obviously, who will help you set a culture, but you also need to then hit on your draft picks. And I don't think they've really done that consistently. So a lot of pressure, I think, on the Commanders at the next draft and going into next year 3 of Jaden Daniels. But yeah, I don't think anyone else, like say Breece Hall, I thought would move. But if the Jets think, getting a 4th isn't a good enough return, I'm not sure I agree with them for a player who's got half a year left on his contract and you ain't going anywhere. But I can see why they're holding the ground on it if they think they might franchise tag him or extend him. Best of luck to them, I guess, because I think he'll probably leave.
Yeah. Yes, that's a roundup. I'll just quickly, Trevor Penning. I'm a bit like, why not? You've lost your 2 tackles. I always think, especially I have to say this most years, any lineman you pick up usually in a trade or free agency, there's usually a reason why they're being let go. I think like the biggest, which that was reversed, was the Trent Williams, 49ers somehow got for like next to nothing when you look at it. But he was disgruntled and he was like, I want out of this place. Get me out.
I like to say somehow, because the 49ers used to let him have treatment. And
Commanders did. Well, yeah.
Who did
the 49ers? You said the 49ers.
Sorry. Yeah, Washington, yeah. I thought I'd accidentally used the old Washington team name and you corrected me, which you absolutely should, if I ever do. But yeah, it feels like as well, like half those O-line trades involved Cam Robinson. So it was nice not to see him move on trade deadline day because it feels like he moves every single
well, he already moved this year. So yeah. He's already moved this year.
Did,
so.
Cleveland.
So you never know. Yeah, went to Cleveland from Texans. So.
And just one last note on the Saints, on Trevor Penning and the Saints. They lost Fuaga this week as well, so they're now down 60% of their starting O-line because Eric McCoy's out for the season. Trevor Penning now plays in LA, and Fuaga, I don't know how long he's out for, but he's certainly out. So if you're playing fantasy, pick up the Saints defense. Saints opponent's defense will be a little tip. Not that you should really need that tip, but
Exactly. It looks like a high ankle sprain, so week to week. So hopefully not too long for the young guard. Right, so that's the free agency headlines. So let's talk about our mid-season awards. Byron came up, so we did all the traditional ones, which we also did at the start of the year. So the generic awards. We didn't do Protector of the Year, which I think we always forget about since it's new, but we can do that next time. And we also came up with a few fun ones, which should be good. So let's start with MVP. So our mid-season awards. So we're not predicting who's going to win at the end of the year. We're giving the award as how they played the first 9 weeks. So Byron, I'll let you kick things off since you're the guest and Paul's not here.
Cheers. I have picked Drake May. He is currently at 4-1 to win the award. Patriots are 7-2, if my memory serves. I don't actually have the standings up, but I'm pretty sure they're 7-2. He has the best passing completion in the league. Also, while doing so, he has the 5th highest yards per attempt in the league. Not an easy thing to combine, usually. He has the 1st in completion percentage over expected, despite, again, having the 5th highest yards per attempt. Is 4th in EPA per play, 5th in success rate, 2 rushing touchdowns, 17 passing touchdowns, 3rd in the league. I think, and you look at who he's throwing to. Stephon Diggs, who's been really good, but isn't, Ja'Marr Chase, Justin Jefferson, etc. Hunter Henry having a bit of a reborn year, been very, very good. Keyshawn Boutte, who I don't think a single person was drafted in fantasy this season, has been really good. Getting nothing out of Trevion Henderson and not much out of Ramondre Stevenson. They even turned into a person, apparently Terrell Jennings, who apparently is a real person, this last week. And it doesn't seem to matter. Drake May just still keeps making things happen. He's very good in the pocket. He makes Josh Allen-esque throws on the move. He's very good at moving his pocket and moving his feet around it to protect himself. I just think he's been playing at an exemplary level this year. And with that team record alongside it, that was my pick for MVP.
Yeah, nice. I actually went Drake May to start with, but I changed it at the last minute. I went for Sam Darnold. I was going back and forth. I think Drake May. I think there's like a few quarterbacks you could choose. I don't think there's like in past years where you're like, okay, they're dead set. They've just been like way and above everyone else. I think the 3 quarterbacks we've chosen here, I think you'll add in like Patrick Mahomes, possibly like Josh Allen, and you could even throw in someone like Jonathan Taylor or JSN. But yeah, I would Sam Darnold. So his odds to win at the end of the year is 16-1. I've come around with the Seahawks. I think they might be the best team in NFL now. And what Sam Darnold's doing is just playing perfection. And I think sometimes it gets like the whole like game management. I think sometimes people just think, oh, that's just easy. Like anyone can do that. Anyone can just throw it when people are open and sexual, but they can't. And I think just what he's doing for this Seahawks team, you watch the game on Monday, and I think or Sunday, on Sunday night, where that's probably the first time people have seen him where it was perfect through halftime. I know he had the interception. He was probably trying to do a little bit too much, but they were like so far in the lead. And that's what he's just doing each game, is just doing what he's supposed to do and putting his team in positions, and he's being perfection. And we'll talk about his wide receiver, but I don't think his wide receiver where he is if Sam Darnold's not playing what he is. And I think he's not had the issues which plagued him at the Vikings the last few years and in the last few games and the playoffs. And I think he's just played complementary football. He's thrown it when he's had to throw it. He's done what he is. Do I think he might continue that? Yeah, he might have his little dip, what a few players might have. But right now, 9 weeks in, I think he's just been like what the Seahawks could imagine. They couldn't imagine it going any much better. So I went Sam Darnold. Paul, on the other hand, went another NFC West team, who I think may be the second best team in the league, but I think it's a tight between these two. He's gone Matthew Stafford at 5-1. I think he's also done that. I think some of his stats are outstanding when you think he's 37 years old and can hardly run. What he's doing, and you watch the games and some of the throws he's just producing, where you're like, how the hell has he managed to get that ball there? I think he's still doing them kind of passes, and he's like an underrated top 5 quarterback, which I don't know. I know it doesn't make sense, but he never gets the plaudits like the top quality I've had the last 10 years, but he's always top 5 there. And I think he's just he's just kept that level this year. And like I said, with no one like going above and beyond, I think I understand why Paul's gone for him as well, and he's 5-1 to win the end of the year. So I think it's definitely Stafford's done. I think I was going to go Mahomes if that was like the one cost, but it feels like weird going for Mahomes every single year. So that's why I went to give Sammy Darnold a little shout out. Any comments on Paul's pick?
No, I love both of these, truthfully. I think all three are worthy contenders. If I had to root for one, I'm rooting for Matthew Stafford because I backed him at, I think, 50-1 preseason. So, yes, please, Matthew. Let's keep going.
It is. All right, let's move on to the next award. Offensive Player of the Year. So yeah, I'll let you go, Byron, because you and Paul went for the for the same player, and I'll let you take it for both of you.
Yeah, available at around 3-1. Jackson Smith in Jigba. Me and Paul both went for the same player. Leads the league in receiving yards, 948 yards, 100 more than anybody else. He has 118.5 yards per game, 12 yards per target, both of which are the leads in the NFL entirely. He is the 5th highest in yards per reception. 7th highest. But every player below him has half the amount of receptions he does, other than Emeka Egbuka, who has 34. JSN has 58. So he's basically about half, if you knock a couple off. He has been outstanding this year. He's playing like the best wide receiver in football. I'm not sure if I take him long term as the best receiver in football, but this year he certainly is. I don't think it's very close. This is another one I'm going to shout out again, Scott Spratt, who works over, I think, at FTN Fantasy. Let me just confirm where Scott is at. Yeah, FTN Fantasy is got a yards per route run. This is from 2021 when they started developing this metric at FTN Fantasy. The prior two highest ever seasons were 2022 and 2023. Tyreek Hill, 3.89 yards per route run, 4.03 yards per route run. This is through the first 9 weeks of a season, so it's match to match. It's not a full season stat that he's looking at here. JSN is at 4.56. That is the highest recorded rate through 9 weeks of a season by half a yard. That is just, I think, absolutely mind-blowing. I don't know what you say to it. Everyone knows where the ball's going in Seattle, and yet the ball still gets to him. Leads the league, like I said, in receiving yards. He's just close to unstoppable. He reminds me of peak Antonio Brown, which I know is a bit of a... It feels like it should be hyperbole, but when you're going 4.56 yards per route run through half a season, and everyone knows you're getting the ball, and you lead the league in receiving, and you lead the league in yards per reception, like high-volume players, I don't know what else he can do. If he does this for a full season, wide receiver's never going to win MVP apparently, but I think he's a very worthy candidate for OPOY.
Yeah, I agree. But the player I've gone for is someone similar who has a lot of the ball and no one seems to stop him. I've gone for Jonathan Taylor, running back for the Colts. I think into this year, I don't think we had we had like expectations, but not this high. He's just taken to another level. He's been the best running back this year. When there was probably like I don't know, maybe the late like top 10, like it seems. But what he's done this year, just every single game, it feels like it's a highlight. That 80-yard rushing touchdown the other week just seems that effortless, and you see his teammates where they're just like, we just need to give him the ball, and like the defense just like. They just can't stop him. Some of the stats, which I think, so through 9 games, he leads the NFL with 4.07 yards after contact per carry. For context, 16 running backs with at least 50 carries don't even reach that mark in total yards per carry. So he's just like, after getting contact, he's getting more yards than quite a few running backs. He also tops the running backs with 41 missed tackles forced, and he ranks 4th in the other position in receiving yards as well. So he's not just a rushing machine; he's also a receiving machine too. And I think we saw it against the Steelers the other week. This offense runs around Jonathan Taylor. If he's hot, if he's going, everything works. If a team stops him, that's where they get in trouble. And we saw what happened with Daniel Jones, where he was forced to throw because they couldn't get Jonathan Taylor going. And that's just one game they couldn't get him going. And I think teams might try and do that. But I feel like he's going to rise above it just because how incredible he's been this year. And I think right now, I think it's a toss-up between these two players who gets Offensive Player of the Year. And I think they should be both in the MVP consideration because I'm curious if either of them tops that mark, the 2,000-yard mark, and if Jonathan Taylor can get up there with, especially with his how many touchdowns he's got. He's got a crazy amount of touchdowns. He's got 12 already. So if he gets to 24, he's had a couple of games with 3 touchdowns. We talk about Fantasy Game Day quite a lot. That he's just a touchdown machine. I think he had 3 games in a row with 3 touchdowns. So yeah, he's just incredible, just like the best running back in the league. So that's why I've gone him. And he is currently the odds-on favorite to win Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, and just to shout out a little there, he has another 2 touchdowns through the air as well. So he's 14 in total. And Danny Dimes, I think there's only 7 players with more touchdowns on the ground than Danny Jones. So, if you give those 5 touchdowns on the ground to, maybe not all of them, but I think you could probably say 3 of them should maybe go to Jonathan Taylor as the primary back. That'll put him on 15 rushing touchdowns through week 9. That is insane. Well, I mean, everything he's doing is insane this season. But yeah, I think obviously a worthy candidate. He's odds on for a reason.
Yeah. And the record is 28, which was LaDainian Tomlinson. So he's not a million miles off it. And he's he's 2 behind. So fine. You wouldn't be shocked if he certainly pushes or gets near to that anyway. So absolutely. I'm curious if he does break that record, if that would put him into the MVP conversation like LT did and Tomlinson and
Adrian Peterson got it when he went 2,000 yards.
Yeah, so Jonathan Taylor's just near 900. So again, he's probably just behind by 100, but they've got to play some. The schedule's not too crazy, and he's rushing nearly 100 yards per game as well, which is
and they're playing a dome.
Yeah,
which helps.
Not too bad. And a big shout out to obviously and James Cook as well. He's like I said, I think he's super underrated. He's rushing 108 yards per game. He's played one less game, and he's second in the pushing lead. So shout out to James Taylor, James Cook as well. Let's move on to Defensive Player of the Year. I think this one's a lot more open. Again, I don't think there's been like someone crazy like standing out. Where I think it feels like about 5 to 10 players you could possibly give a shout out. We'll go with Paul's first. He chose Nick Benito from the Broncos at 17-2. He's one of the ones. He's one of the odds on. Like I said, 17-2 to the end of the year. He's just been the outstanding player on that Denver defense. Just all the sacks and all the pressures he is getting. I think he's had a great start to the year, and it helps that being on a Broncos defense where he probably can stack them stats even further when you've got such a good overall team. So I wouldn't be surprised as well at the end of the year if he's there. But yeah, he certainly deserves nomination for the mid-season award. I'll go with mine next. So it felt like a bit too chalk to go Garrett, but you know what? I'm going for him because what he does on a poor team, I think there's not been a defensive player of the year on a losing team unless they have historic production. And he gets double, triple team every single play. So he's double team at the highest rate among the top edges in ESPN's pass rush win rate. He's 8th in win rate overall. So even having double teams, he's still winning constantly. I think there was the video, I can't remember who were playing now, it was basically 3 offensive linemen just went towards him and just tried to stop him, where there's not many defenders where they're like, what we need to do now is just stop one player on defense. And that's all they try and do. And just what he's able to do. He's tied with Brian Burns with sacks with 10. So he's on pace for 21 and a half sacks this season, which will put him one shy of the single season record. He's also on pace for 32 tackles for loss, which would be the second most in a single season in NFL history. So I think he's just the best defensive player in the NFL. I think there's some players like Parsons and could like in terms of like pass rush and stuff, but what he does overall, his pass rushing, he's really good against the run. Against the run, he gets double teamed all the time. Everything is stacked against him, and he still wins week in, week out. And he plays for the Browns, who don't have. They've got like a decent defense, but it's not a Broncos kind of defense.
If they didn't have Myles Garrett, it would look a lot worse.
Yeah, so that's what I'm always interested. I know he took the money, and we took the mick out of him for that. I knew what the plan was. Like if he was on somewhere else, like what he could have done. But yeah, I just think he's got to a point where he's like, is he now the best, just the best player in the NFL? I think he's certainly up there, like just overall, just man marvel of a human being. So moving on to yours, Baron.
Yeah, I went Aiden Hutchinson, who I think he's up there in talent. I think what's helped him though is that Detroit are in a lot more visible games. He's got 7 sacks on the season, so about 50 in the league so far. He's got 16 QB hit, 4 forced fumbles, which I think is really important. He has that TJ Watt about him of just getting in there and smashing that ball out. And he's on a good team as well, so that obviously helps. I think it's probably between, to me, Hutchinson and Myles Garrett. I think the Broncos have too many cooks, essentially. Zach Allen's having a great year. Jonathan Cooper's having a great year. Nick Bonito's having a great year as well. So I think that might overshadow a little of their narrative around them. And, you know, when one eats, they all kind of eat, you know, because they're all doing such a good job. If you put 2 of those on the Browns, I don't know how many sacks Myles Garrett would have. Same kind of thing with the Lions. There is no pass rusher opposite Aiden Hutchinson, despite, again, every trade deadline comes and goes, well, surely they're going to have an edge rusher here. And the best of them is had, you know, the very veteran at that point, Zadarius Smith last year, who, you know, was a very veteran player. They yet again have not added anybody, constantly double team, triple teamed, and yet he still just gets it done, coming back from a brutal injury. Myles Garrett has maybe been slightly better in production, but I think Hutchinson, I think, has stood out more to me. Maybe because I just expected more from Myles Garrett, maybe a bit unfair, but I think they're pretty equitable. I'd be happy with either as the pick, truthfully.
Yeah, I think the emotion of, like you mentioned, like the coming back from the injury, and like the Lions is like a lovable team where the Browns are not right now. So he also, and I think it's also he hasn't had that big contract, and you know I think some people have negative connotation towards Garrett for taking all that money and you know and all that kind of stuff, and you know being a bit ruthless with helmets on benches and other people. So so I can see why Hutchinson would certainly be a favourite. Moving on to offensive rookie of the year. This could have been a clean sweep. I decided not to make it a clean sweep, but it was very tempting to do that. Do you want to go ahead what yours and Paul's were, which I think is the best wide receiver, easily the best wide receiver in this draft class?
Yeah, Emeka Egbuka. For me and Paul, you can still get him around just under 2 to 1, 7 to 4. Nice price, 562 yards on the season, 34 receptions, 5 touchdowns. On a Tampa team that has ended up actually really needing that wide receiver. You know, it seemed like a little bit of a luxury pick at the time with Mike Evans being, you know, Hall of Famer, Chris Godwin coming off a brutal injury, but coming off one of the best half seasons of his career prior to the injury. And then you had Jalen McMillan as well. So it didn't feel like a need, but Godwin hasn't recovered very well from his ankle injury. Mike Evans is out for the season. And Egbuka from week 1. You know, Egbuka was one of my favorite prospects in the draft last year. And, you know, not to toot my horn, because I think it was pretty obvious to anyone who could see him, he was a first-round pick. He did exactly what I anticipated. He hit the ground running. He's an absolute pro. He knows exactly where he should be and what he should be doing. Baker Mayfield loves him. Talked him up all, you know, preseason. He flew up fantasy drafts because of it. And I just think you could make an argument for Jackson Dart, but I think Jackson Dart is more of a great fantasy quarterback than a great real-life one at this point in his career. That's not a criticism. He doesn't have anybody to throw the ball to. And he's getting fantasy points with his legs, which credit to him. But I'm pretty sure he's averaging under 200 yards a game. And again, I'm not saying this to beat up on Jackson Dart. He's been better than Cam Ward through the start of the season. I think it should be a 2-horse race with Tyler Warren. And I just think the tie goes to the wide receiver in most instances. Warren has been incredible on a really good team. But I just think Egbuka's just slightly outshone him a little.
Yeah, there's not much I can disagree with. I just went for Tyler Warren just because what he's done for this team, where they had them wide receivers, the 3 wide receivers, quite a while, like last year and I think the year before. And they were, obviously having a different quarterback certainly helps, not going from Anthony Richardson to, but it never felt like, I always felt there was a bunch of wide receiver 2s on a team, and they didn't have that like winner, like just wins no matter what. Mm-hmm. And I think what Tyler Warren is, I know he gets schemed. I think what they've done for to scheme him up, and he's like usually got not many defenders around him. That certainly helps Jones again. But it's getting to a point where people know he's going there. And having Jonathan Taylor again helps. But what he's coming to this, he's basically doing what Brock Bowers did a year ago, and we were lauding Brock Bowers as like the number 1 tight end, and you know, going into this year's probably number 1 again. He's taken across, but Warren's done the same thing when you look at rookie tight ends, and Coming into the draft, like, it felt like he was the number one, and then as he got closer, it felt like there was a lot of people were knocking him for a lot of things. Obviously, Loveland went before to the Bears, and Tyler Warren showed them that, especially on the offensive side, that they've made right now after 9 games, they've made the incorrect decision because he's just been open all the time. In terms of like tight ends, he's second in yards, which I was surprised that Kelsey is actually higher than, which is
I would have
surprising.
guessed McBride if I had to guess someone higher than him. I'm surprised it's
Yeah, and he's also got a number of TDs as well. So I think, and in fantasy, he's the third highest in fantasy in points as well. And obviously, number one has just unfortunately gone out for the season. So I think he's just going to continue. Just how he plays just seems like it's that effortless, and it's just gonna. It doesn't feel like he's just he's a rookie and he's like lining the bottle and he could drop off. I feel like he's going to be one of them we're going to be talking about in the future, where it's like we had the Kelsey, Kittle, Mark Andrews debate. I think he's going to be like, it's going to be Brock Bowers, Tyler Warren, and whoever else, like in years to come, who the best tight end in this league. And it just feels fitting for Colts to have a great tight end. It's been a while since they've had one, and they've struck gold there. So he's 7-1 to win it at the end of the year. I think Jackson Dart is the favorite to win it. I wonder if, because like Booker's the last like 1 or 2 games is with the injury, and he's not been as explosive, and he's certainly dealing with some of the hamstring, and he's basically had to play for because of the other wide receivers being out. So hopefully after the bye, he comes back as strong as ever, because he was playing just as good as like JSN, which we'll chat about in a few awards time, in that game where no one could stop either of them, and Ohio State wide receivers certainly got something about them. Right, let's move on to defensive rookie of the year, which I think maybe the biggest disappointment in terms of options. There's been no like, holy shit, they've absolutely struck gold on this player, he's the best defensive player, and like come out of the traps. No one's been playing like, he always feels like he goes to defensive edge rusher. But we were chatting before that, other than Carter, who's had a good start of the year, not being like crazy good. There's been a lot of disappointing defensive players rookie wise. But we'll talk about defensive players, which I think have shone. And me and Paul's going for a similar position, but I'll go mine first. I've got Carson Swedinger for the Browns. Again, I think he got picked in the second round. And he was replacing, and I know Browns fans weren't happy about it. I think it was the second highest linebacker picked, but it felt like they took him very early where they took him, and there was a lot of like, why they're taking a linebacker here. Obviously, there was the injury, the previous linebacker, their young linebacker. But what he's managed to do, he's come and you've got Myles Garrett, but he feels like he's the second best defensive player in his rookie year, and I feel like linebacker is one of them positions where rookies don't normally thrive. You don't get linebackers to come in unless they're like Luke Kuechly, Patrick Willis, them like Hall of Fame kind of caliber, where players just come in and straight away they're one of the best in the league. Where you see someone like Zach Bond, it took him a few years at a different team to then get to that level. Where Carson Swedinger just has been outstanding from the beginning, tackling. He's had an interception, and just like his overall game, he feels like he's the mouthpiece in terms of like setting the players. And I know he's just got injured, which is also devastating. But the first 9 weeks, I don't think there's been anyone I've been more like, I wasn't expecting that. I thought he was going to be a bit of a bust, and this Browns team were going to struggle in that linebacker position because they needed help there, and they felt like they've reached, compared to what Paul's pick was, where he felt like the Eagles have done it again. They've got the linebacker which is going to shine and going to be the the ultimate Eagles kind of pick, where they managed to get these players like way down in the first round. And so Paul picked Jihad Campbell, who certainly made a big impact, especially in coverage, where he owns a third ranked 83.3 PFF grade, and he's only missed just 4.3% of his attempts. And his run defense is not bad at all. And he's had 9 pressures from 44 snaps as pass rusher. So as we said earlier on, it feels like Howie's done it again. So I think I'll be surprised if a linebacker gets it. It feels like they don't get it, like I said, unless they're like a Luke Kuechly kind of
Yeah,
player,
stunning.
but I think just how this year has started with, like we said, the disappointment with the players, then yeah, these certainly deserve the award from me and Paul. And we'll move into yours with a player who started off slow and didn't wasn't playing that much, but certainly has skyrocketed the last few games.
Yeah, Nick Emenwari, or Nick Emenwardroy, as I'm calling him. Available at 3-1. PFF are regarding him as a cornerback, so I'm going to use cornerback comps here for him, but he has the 81.6 PFF overall grade, third out of 113 cornerbacks this year. 6 total pressures, which is 6 from cornerbacks this year. And again, he's used all over the field, almost, Kyle Hamilton-esque. And this is a player who, again, I talk about this a lot, but in the 2024 draft, I couldn't believe the Seahawks passed on Cooper DeJean. But I think he's got his Cooper DeJean now, Mike McDonald. And they got him in the second round this year. Coverage efficiency in the slot. There is no player in the league allowing less yards allowed per coverage snap than Nick Emenwari. He's basically tied with Derwin James, who is an absolutely elite safety. And he also allows a pretty low passer rating in the slot, beating out Jalen Ramsey, Trevor Morig, Teron Johnson, Marcus Jones, Jordan Lewis, Kenny Moore. Ton of very, very good slot players who, we expect to be good defensive backs. He's doing it as a rookie who didn't start especially well. But I think outside of those stats, which can be a little, I'm not going to say disingenuous, but, it's how much faith do you put in PFF, et cetera, just watch him on tape. Like, go out of your way to pay attention to him this last few weeks. He blew up an incredible screen pass against the Commanders on Sunday Night Football. I think it was Debo got the screen pass, and he was lined up against a wide receiver who was blocking him or trying to block him downfield, and he basically just overpowered him and tackled Debo Samuel with his other arm. I thought it was absolutely incredible and such a standout. There was an incredible play against the Falcons a few weeks ago where essentially he was dropping back in coverage and nearly picked off Penix. Was that the Falcons? Have they played the Falcons? I don't know why I'm saying Falcons. In my head, it's a white uni, and I'm picturing Michael Penix. Anyway, whoever it was dropped back, nearly picked it off after fooling the quarterback, essentially. I just think he stands out, I was going to say game after game, but certainly the last 3 or 4 games, game after game, seems to be taking on more and more importance and has become Mike McDonald's Swiss Army knife, I think, in that defense. So I think he's just going to get better as the season goes along.
Yeah. Awesome. So the coach of the year, I've talked about the Colts quite a bit. I've got a Shane Steichen. I think what we expected at the start of this year, I think some of our bets were a bit disrespectful when you look back. We certainly were wrong about the Colts, what he's managed to do with Daniel Jones. Again, I'll talk about in a little bit. It's been incredible. So it was a toss-up between him and what you and Paul picked.
Yeah, I think one of the things, again, like we said it during the preseason when we talked the Colts, was, just give him a quarterback. We just didn't think they had. Because, we didn't think Danny Dimes was this guy. Shane Steichen has a 500 record in his first 2 years, as a coach, period. With that cast of characters at quarterback, Gardner Minshew, Joe Flacco, and Anthony Richardson repeatedly. So to do what he's doing, I think if we knew who Danny Dimes was, we wouldn't view it as such a surprise, but we didn't. And I think credit to Steichen for making Danny Dimes who he is, because, we'll wait and see if he really has turned back into a pumpkin post-Halloween or not. But absolute credit to Shane Steichen for having this team rolling as he has, like you say, a rookie tight end in consideration for Offensive Rookie of the Year, Jonathan Taylor in consideration for Offensive Player of the Year, and Danny Dimes for Comeback Player of the Year, maybe, or maybe not MVP, but he's certainly playing at a great level. So, yeah, I can't argue with it. I just leaned Vrabel, as did Paul. Basically, the Patriots have gone picking number 3 in the draft to maybe winning their division. I think certainly making the playoffs at this point. The Colts weren't in a good spot either, but they were more middling. They were picking at 14 in the draft. So to go from 14 to winning your division versus going from 3 to winning your division, and Vrabel's a brand new hire, whereas Steichen, I don't think he should be judged on the failures, in quote marks, of the last 2 years, because I think he was doing the best with what he had. But Vrabel's come in as a brand new coach to the situation and is leading Buffalo in the standings through 9 weeks. So that's why Vrabel gets a nod for me.
Yeah, well, I would, because we're obviously picking it mid-season, so what they've done. So the Colts are currently number 1 seed in AFC, Patriots number 2. They're both got the same record. Shout out to, I think, Sean Payton, because number 3, I think he's done a great job. And on the NFC side of thing, what Mike McDonald's has finally managed to do with their Seahawks, he's got where they've got him to go. I think Todd Bowles deserves a lot of credit as well. I think he always gets overlooked. And shout out to my guy Shanahan, managed to get him. He's gone to 6-3 with all them injuries, losing your quarterback, losing your star tight end, losing all your defense, and he's certainly done an awesome job.
I was being a bit hyperbolic at the time, but I think after that Thursday Night Football win in LA with Mac Jones on a short week. 8.5-point underdogs and winning outright. I think I'd have been relatively happy to give Kyle Shanahan the award then, because that is just that is a man who's just coached a victory. That isn't a team who's won it.
yeah, certainly been being the awesome coach. He might get a recognition, but it's sometimes hard to get. Coaches have been great for a number of years to get that. Cool, right, let's move on to comeback player of the year. So me and you have gone for the same player. We've got slightly different odds. I think it's because I didn't change my odds. I think that's what it is. I think it is 10 to 11 for the end of the year. So we both from Christian McCaffrey. I'll let you speak for us. I've spoke about McCaffrey a lot this year, so I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, back to his best. Maybe not as a rusher, but as a pass catcher, he's been absolutely incredible. I'm not sure of the exact stat through week 9, but through week 7, I think he ranked as a wide receiver 4 in fantasy points as a receiver. Never mind his rushing work. He's just an absolute marvel. And again, while everyone else around the 49ers falls down around him, Christian McCaffrey is the one picture of health on the 49ers. That in itself feels like he should win comeback player of the year. But
I was just about to say that. How much possessions he's had in terms of like running and receiving. He had the knock on him. Obviously, last year he had all the injuries. Year before he was, offensive player of the year, had the Madden curse. So to manage to stay healthy with all them touches, and everyone keeps worrying, but he's got through the first half of the season all good. It's not even like being the thing with like play like a Debo, for example. Every time for the 49ers, like he got shot or like he broke his leg every play. So every guy you're like, oh, is he going to get back up? McCaffrey doesn't look that whatsoever. He's just been like a constant pro, and it's just like, he's not even looked like he's got injured or he's like old. I think there was like one he just sat out of training just because he felt something, but I think that was before the start of the year. But other than that, he's and that's been a full full of health. Yeah. No, exactly. And
if you want to rest and recover, Christian, you go ahead. And just to re-emphasize, he's been very, very, very good. He has the first most rushing attempts in the league. He has the second most receptions in the league. That is insanity for a player who, again, there was questions of, will he be fit? Has that him finally done as a running back 1 in fantasy because he got injured last year? The second most receptions in the league for a running back. Not second most for a running back. He's behind Jamar Chase, just to be clear. Like, he's not behind Alvin Kamara or whoever running back it might be who gets more catches. He's the second overall player in receptions and leads the league in rush attempts. He is the 49ers offense. No offense to Mac Jones, who's shone. But yeah, I think it has to be Christian McCaffrey. He's coming back from injury and he has not stopped touching the ball. He's just every time the 49ers are on the ball, he is on it as well.
Yeah, I'm curious if it is a shame in terms of like where his Hall of Fame future looks like. Like if he had stayed fit, I know that's a big if with a lot of players, but like how much like yards receiving and rushing he would have got would have been insane. And Paul's is Aiden Hutchinson, which is 92 to win. Byron's already talked all about Aiden Hutchinson, so that's why Paul's picked him coming off the leg or the broken leg last year. So nice. So let's talk about game of the year. So this was so we've added a few more awards which are slightly different than the regular season awards. So this is our first game of the year. We'll just talk about Paul's first. I think Paul went first in terms of picking on the sheet. And when I saw it, I was like, makes complete sense. It feels a long time ago. It feels like many moons ago, but it only feels like this league started as well. So week 1, the Baltimore Ravens versus the Buffalo Bills. It was the first Sunday night game, I believe. And it was just back and forth, and somehow the Ravens do what the Ravens do and blow an absolute massive lead, and Josh Allen comes back. And when you look at how the season went on from there, it was a huge win for the Bills, and it felt very much how the Ravens have been with how he continued. So that was just incredible. It was 41-40 to the Bills to get that last, scoring 22 points at the end. Byron, I'll let you talk about mine and yours. Nomination. Who we awarded this Game of the Year trophy to?
Yeah, certainly at the midpoint, week 5, Bucks at Saints. Bucks win 38-35 to go 4-1 on the season. Seahawks fall to 3-2 at that point. Incredible game. Baker Mayfield 29-33, 2 touchdowns. Sam Darnold for 379 yards. Sam Darnold 341 yards, 28-34, 4 touchdowns. And very sadly for Sam Darnold, right at the end, 1 interception. Lavonte David catching him off guard a little, bounced off a D lineman or O lineman's head. I don't actually recall. I just know it bounced off someone's helmet. Falling perfectly for Lavonte David. Bucks kick a field goal to end the game. Bucks kept going ahead in the game. Seahawks would catch them back up. Bucks would go ahead. Seahawks would catch them back up. And then with 3 minutes to go, I think it's 3:54 on the clock. Sorry, I'm wrong. 4:02 on the clock. Torrey Horton catches to go 35-28 Seattle. And you think, oh, they've finally done it. What a game. Well, no. Make a play field still exists. Drives back down the field. Sterling Shepard, 11-yard touchdown from Baker Mayfield, 35-35 with 1:08 left. And then, yeah, you think, well, have they left too long on the clock for Sam Darnold and JSN to get it again? Well, as I said, no, sadly for them, Lavonte David gets a INT and Chase McLaughlin kicks a game winner. We shouted out the QB stats there, but let's do wide receivers as well because it was a hell of a game. Emeka Egbuka, 7 for 163, averaging 23 yards of reception and a touchdown. JSN, 8 for 132, 16.5 yards of reception and a touchdown. Both had longest receptions in the 50s. It just an absolute lights out back and forth game. Exactly what you want to see from both these teams and exactly what they've been through 9 weeks. Just no death in them, nothing but fight in them. And yeah, one team sadly had to lose. Seattle in this case at home, which, if it was on the road, they'd have probably won.
Yeah, and a few shout outs to some other games. I don't know if you've got any shout outs, but another Bucks game against the Jets, which was really fun in terms of Aaron Glenn doing the little dance after the block. Field goal touchdown, which was incredible for the Bucks to go back up. It feels like Bucks have been in quite a lot of these. Obviously, the Broncos Giants, who for the Broncos scoring was 33 points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
and also the weekend, the Bengals Bears game was incredible as well.
Yeah.
And there's a few Cowboys as well actually against the Giants and Packers were fun games. Maybe not for Cowboy fans, but for everyone else.
Yeah. My only other shout was Ravens at Bills. That was going to be my thought, and I thought, oh, actually, no, that Bucks Seahawks game was magical. So,
nice. Right, let's move on to breakout player. So, how Byron described this was, a player who broke out. So non-rookie, who is now a surprisingly great player. I'll go with my first. So this was like a tricky. I was just trying to get my head around, and what I've decided, I went for JSN, not just becoming a great player, just being the player. I think. Obviously, there was a big gamble. I think obviously he had a good year last year, but obviously with Metcalf and Lockett, he was like, it felt like he was like number 2, like he was like battling with Metcalf, and obviously he won the position to be the true number 1 with them trading away Metcalf. So I was expecting, good things. Like I expect him to be like a solid wide receiver 1, but he's just elevated his game too. Like we've talked about it a lot of the previews and reviews, that he's a top 3 wide receiver now. I think he is battling against Chase and Justin Jefferson of who is the best wide receiver in the league. And I wasn't expecting that coming into this year. I thought he could be like a top 10, but to be a top 3 is where, especially like I think you mentioned it, talked about before, where he's really their only main weapon and people still can't stop him. And I think that's what's a scary thing. And yeah, with what he's currently on pace for, it could be an incredible year. So he's my breakout player in terms of being that number 1. And I was actually going to choose who you chose, Byron. That was going to be my second choice. So I'll let you go with who you chose.
Yeah, I went Javonte Williams. Obviously, we don't have odds for this award because that would be very weird. But yeah, this is kind of more just a telling on myself here. I thought Javonte Williams was absolutely washed. Anyone who would listen to me talk about fantasy, I was like, just take Miles Sanders in the last round if you're going to take a Dallas running back, because they're basically the same player and they're both washed. You might as well just take the one who doesn't cost you a 10th round draft pick. Yeah, that was probably going to blooper reel because that was wrong. 4th in the league in receiving yardage, got 40 first downs, 8 rushing touchdowns, 5.2 yards per attempt. He's come in and took this job, and the Dallas O-line is good, but I think Javonte Williams is running really, really good behind it as well. I don't think he's a product of the line. I think he's absolutely contributing to his own success. And again, this is more just slapping myself on the wrist and giving myself a bit of a scolding because I like Javonte Williams, the rookie, but since he tore his ACL, he just has looked. I thought he was absolutely done. I thought he was washed, and I'm delighted that I'm wrong. Not just because he's on the Cowboys, but because you like to see players recover from injury. It's a brutal thing that doesn't happen often enough, and I believe he's on a 1-year deal, so hopefully he gets a bit of a bigger bag coming up free agency. And yeah, he's absolutely proven me wrong.
It won't be the Cowboys, will it? Because Jerry doesn't like paying his players. And then finally, Paul went for Daniel Jones, but I've got Daniel Jones in the later category. So yeah, we'll talk about Danny Dimes in a sec. So the reversal, so the fell off award. So we expected them to be great this year, or at least good, and they've just been no, it's absolute trash. That might be a harsh or something, but they've just not been that good. We'll talk about Paul's first, just because we talked about it with the trade. He went for Brian Thomas Jr., and I was in a similar camp. I remember the start of the year, I had a few bets on him that he was going to get 1,000 yards. There was the interesting thing, could the top 3 receivers all be LSU alumni with him, Jefferson, and Chase? And like, could that be really interesting that he could be basically what JSN is? And he's gone backwards, where there was rumors he might have been traded, that where Jags, and then Jags said, oh no, we don't want him. But then they were like, but we'll take phone calls if someone wants to give us something crazy, like maybe a 1, and maybe what Quinion Williams got. I think they would have traded him. And you looked last year, that would have been off the table. So yeah, he was definitely like up there, because I've been very disappointed in terms of, and he might have an injury, because there's like a lot of weird things in terms of like him not like competing as much as last year, where he's only getting certain types of throws he's catching. And does it fit in the system? But still, how amazing it was last year, and how we all thought the Jags had hit on a superstar. He's been a bit disappointing. And I'd follow on with mine. I know he's your favorite, and it's been a real disappointment. Geno Smith for the Vegas Raiders. I think this was just because when, obviously, with Sam Darnold going there and Geno moving away, we were all a bit like, well, what have the Seahawks done? Like, they're trading away a better quarterback. He may be older by some years, and we might be able to and it might be a little bit more expensive, but he's giving you everything. He's been awesome. And for the Vegas Raiders have got a solid quarterback who's going to give you good play, and with Pete Carroll is going to give you a base of maybe 6 or 7 wins, and then see where you go from there with your skilled players. And you might get lucky and get 9 or 10. It's been the opposite way. It looks like he might be getting benched anytime soon, and it's probably only because of injuries to backup quarterbacks that he hasn't been benched already. So a huge, and then you can blame the team around him. He hasn't got the great, he's got, with Brock Bowers coming back, he certainly played better, and having the best, I would say, he's up there as the best tight end in the league. That helps. Didn't have a great offensive line, but Seahawks didn't even, and he managed to ball out. And I feel like you have to blame him as well, because his play has just not been good enough. Too many, it takes too many sacks. He's doing too many interceptions where it's just boneheaded plays. And as someone who drafted him in a couple of drafts as a third quarterback to help, if anyone got injuries, it's not worked out. So yeah, so Geno is my biggest disappointment, the fell off award. Byron?
Yeah, no argument from me. Big Geno fanboy over the years, but he has been an absolute dud this year, unfortunately. Mine is Alvin Kamara, who I don't know if I was expecting him to be great, maybe more in that Geno category of expecting him to be a role player at the very least, expecting him to contribute, and he has been rancid. He scored a rushing touchdown in week 1 against the Cardinals. He hasn't scored one since, and it is week 9. He's played every game. He's getting 3.9 yards per touch. His career average is 5.4, and that includes this year. This is the lowest yards per touch of his career. He's not a factor in the run game. He's not a factor in the receiving game. He said he didn't want to be traded from New Orleans. I don't know if anyone would have wanted him. To me, I might be wrong about Javonte Williams, but Alvin Kamara is cooked. And put that on there. Put it in stone.
Him play for the Cowboys next year, scoring all these touchdowns.
Can't wait.
Yeah, we'll it'll be in the other category next year. Awesome, cool. We'll move on to the next ones. We'll speed through some of these. So, the real Team X, please stand up. So these have been disappointing teams who have not performed as we expected. I've got the Texans. I knew they had a bad offensive line, but with how good that defense is, and how we coming into the year where we thought, okay, CJ Stroud, he didn't have a great year last year, but he was outstanding his first year. Surely he's going to step up with a new offensive coordinator. And with the wide receiver talent they've got, I know Tank Dell's been injured, but like some of the draftees players they've got, and they've got like, Schultz is still a good tight end, and they've got Nico Collins, who could have been in like the other award in terms of I don't think he's been bad, but like what I expected from him has been very disappointing. So I've gone the Texans. Byron?
I went the Ravens. I know they've had injuries, but I thought they were going to be the Super Bowl winners. I thought the best franchise, the best roster in football. They're 3-5. I know Lamar's missed games, but Tyler Huntley won one of them. So I mean, let's not make out everything was absolutely fine with Lamar. So yeah, I'm sure things will improve. I still think they'll make the playoffs. I still think they'll win the division. But yeah, through 9 games, the Ravens are 3-5. Very, very, very poor.
Yeah, and Paul's on the Falcons, which I think this award could be given to them every single week, not just the season, just every week. Like, will the real Falcons? Who are the real Falcons? I think that's the problem why I didn't go the Falcons, because I have no idea who this team is. Where every week they're either beating the Bills off like dominating, and then just losing to the Panthers. Not scoring a zip. And talking about the Panthers, the next one is, what are you doing here? Like, teams who we did not expect to be here, all very overperforming. I thought this was really hard because it feels like a lot of teams who are doing well, they played really good to get to that point.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone's got lucky. It feels like usually most years there's a lot of lucky teams like how they, and I think the Panthers were the clear choice for me. So me and Paul have gotten the Panthers, who somehow are in the NFC playoff race. And if like even the start of the year and somehow they got back to, obviously the guys who shut down their podcasters certainly helped their team. Because they're absolutely flying. They only could win at home, but they've won a few away. So like 5-4, give a shout to the Panthers. I think give a shout out to the head coach. I think he could be in consideration for coach of the year. What he's managed to do for that team, without how bad that defense was. But yeah, I don't expect them to be there at the end. So what the hell are you doing here in this playoff race in the NFC?
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. I just changed. I had the Panthers as well to the last minute, and I thought, you know what? We were all so low on the Colts, so I'm just going to give the Colts another shout out here. We've talked about them in depth. We don't need to go over it all again. But I think I don't know how many teams I would have picked to be leading the NFL at 7-2 through 9 weeks before I named the Colts, but I'm guessing it'd be closer to 20 than 1. No chance I thought the Colts would be 7-2 and leading the division, leading the league at this stage of the season. So, yeah, shout out Shane Steichen and the gang again for the Colts.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. We'll do the free agent sign of the year because we've talked about these players quite a bit and we can fly through. You and Paul went for Sam Darnold, who I think's been outstanding. I just went Daniel Jones because Sam Darnold had a good year last year, like for most of the season. Like at the end, so you expect him to be at least decent and be good. Danny Dimes, we all didn't think he was going to be the start and he was going to be washed up and going to be on lots of different teams. So I went Danny Dimes. I don't know if you got much to say about Darnold. We talked about him a lot.
I think they are the two rightful winners, whichever one you prefer. I just think Darnold's played at a slightly higher. Well, not slightly. I think Dimes played at a higher level, so I went Darnold. But yeah, both worthy winners, and both in the Vikings quarterback room last year, which is kind of weird.
Which is crazy. And then the next one, best revenge game. So sorry, I just said the best revenge game of the seasons. You want to go first, Byron?
Yeah, absolutely. I took Stephon Diggs, mainly because I was trying to think of someone who would really love that revenge element as well. So yeah, that was week 5. The Patriots beat the Bills 23-20. Stephon Diggs, 10 receptions, 146 yards, and came out after the game and said it was before the game and said it was personal. So he relished the revenge aspect of it. So yeah, Steph Diggs gets my vote.
Nice. And I've gone a Patriots game as well, and that's against the Titans. That's Mike Vrabel going against that team in Tennessee. It felt like the crowd gave him a nice, appreciation. But what they like, how it ended, what they did to him, get rid of his best players, and basically went with the GM who they fired a year later. It felt like there was some bad blood, and he may not admitted it, but I bet he absolutely loved that, especially being a competitor. Mike Vrabel is to shove it down the throat and be like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't have fired me and gone with the GM. Paul's gone basically the Buccaneers, most of the team against the Jets with Todd Bowles, Reddick, and Baker. Obviously, Baker wasn't technically against Jets; he was against the
DC.
The DC who got rid of him in Carolina, and they absolutely shredded them. And I think that just put it over the top for Paul. I think he just loved that sound clip from Baker Mayfield, and it's always good for Todd Bowles to beat the Jets because I think they did him a little bit dirty as well. just with the team. But it feels like whoever coaches the Jets is always feel like they've been done dirty. There's been quite a few head coaches pulling the future who would feel like the same. Awesome, cool, right? We'll see if this works. We've got a few sound bites. Oh no, you know what we'll do? We'll do the if you just give me a second, I've got rid of a slide which we shouldn't have got rid of. It is the play of the year. There you go. Play of the year. So we all chose the play of the year, what we loved. And we'll start with polls. We'll see if this works at the stage. There you go.
68 yards away. It's up there. It's out there. And it's good. It's good from 68. 68 yards away. It's up.
Should be repeating that. Yes, polling for the Cam Little kick against the Jaguars against the Raiders, the franchise, the NFL record. Paul loves his kickers, and it happened last week. Yeah, do you want to speak about it? What was funny is Aubrey had the chance to equal it, and I thought that would just be poor Cam Little, but he missed it by quite a bit. So yeah.
And I love Brandon Aubrey, and I love the Cowboys. I thought it was kind of hilarious that he missed because Paul, especially, and I've been involved as well. I've been saying, just let Brandon Aubrey kick a long one. He'll break the record. And then he finally gets a chance to tie the record, and he absolutely shanked it, to be fair. It wasn't close. So I thought that was kind of funny, truthfully, because we all have this faith that he's going to absolutely do it. But yeah, that was Cam Little. Anytime you break a record in the NFL, I think it's worth celebrating. He kicked a 70-yarder in preseason, so I don't think he's done yet. And I think that would have been good from about 74. So, hopefully we see some more from, little name, but certainly no little leg, Cam Little.
Yeah, definitely. Right, we'll move on to your pick, and it was Trevor Lawrence. So I'll play the clip, and we talked about this on our Power Rankings episode as well, which is always good fun. So I'll play the clip now from Monday Night Football with the Mannings.
Get up! He tripped!
Oh my God, he tripped!
He tripped!
We got him!
He got up!
There we go.
Oh yeah! Get up! He tripped!
Oh my God, he tripped!
He tripped!
We got him!
He got up, and he got up, and he ran! Unbelievable play! That was like.
So anyone not watching on YouTube, do you want to describe? I know we talked about this quite a bit, but what player you chose?
Yeah, so this is the Monday Night Football game, Chiefs Jaguars. It's 23 seconds left in the game. Jags down 4, basically at the goal line, 1st and goal, maybe 5-6 yards out. Trevor Lawrence drops back to pass, trips over his old lineman, gets his foot trapped, falls backwards, rushes to kind of get up, kind of takes 2 attempts to do it, and somehow he's untouched and unpressured and looks up and runs to left-hand side into the end zone. Spectacular play. The Stumble Rooski, people were calling it, which I think is a great name as well. In this clip, it's on the Manning cast. You've got Fred Warner with the Mannings watching it, and they're just all, mind-blowing, as I was watching it live. I just thought it was so fun, and this was a really fun game to watch as well. Maybe could have been in the Game of the Year consideration as well, but I just thought it was a really fun one, and it was a really cool way for it to end, really, with Trevor Lawrence, who week to week you don't know quite what you're going to get. There's probably going to be a big mistake in there, but there might be a really fun play in there as well. And I like this Jags team. I know they're not perfect or great or anything, but I picked them to win this game, so I had that emotional investment in it as well. So I was just really rooting for them, and I just thought it was such a wild one. And you got the memes of Chris Jones afterwards as well, who just apparently didn't even bother trying to make a play, which I would have been happy with.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be, but also how he tripped. It looked like I also don't blame him as well, because how it happened, you're not expecting him to because and it's also what I loved about it is if he'd got tackled or touched, it'd be that's just Trevor Lawrence and never good no shell there. They're on the 1st and goal with 20 odd seconds to go, and he's managed to no timeouts, and he's managed to fall over and fuck up the game. So the fact he managed to get up, stumble again, and then get in the end zone to beat Patrick Mahomes and the team, I thought that was awesome. Cool. So it's on to my pick, and I went with. I just feel sorry for them, so I decided that why not go with let's get Cam Ward's incredible throw. I think it was week 2 or 3? It was very early in the season against the Rams. They were 10-3 down, and this is what happened in Tennessee.
Play. 2nd quarter. Warren looking. Looping out of trouble. Trying to set up receivers. He's going to throw against his body to the end zone. Caught Touchdown! Spectacular!
When you just watch that, it's just ridiculous how he managed to get that far, falling away. And so we obviously knew he had a rocket coming out of college, and he was known for these kind of players. But to do that in the NFL against a good Rams team, I just thought, you know what, they've not had much joy, the Tennessee Titans. So give it to Cam Ward, who, spins out, runs to his right, and launches, the opposite way across his body, which every time a QB does that, it's always like, what are you doing? Like, no, and managed to get it all the way for a touchdown. So yeah, I thought I'd give Cam Ward some love there. And I actually was looking through the PFF online, the greatest difficulty. Based on that, and that was certainly up there in terms of how crazy that player was in terms of the PFF. I think.
Very cool.
Yeah, that was Cam Ward. So that was our players of the season. Let's now move on to so many different ones. Soundbite of the season. So funnily enough, we might as well do Paul's because he loved to just loves his kicker, that guy.
Yeah, anything with a kicker.
Yeah. I think this is it. Yeah, let's get up there. It is Mike Tomlin talking about his love for his bold kicker.
How you respond to that oftentimes defines you. And I can't say enough about Boz. Man, our kicker is a serial killer. Man, he got a low pulse rate. He can't wait to deliver.
Yeah, I think Paul just loves the kick. He loves Mike Tomlin. Paul always loves it. I think he's a secret Steelers fan. He loves the bet. He loves Mike Tomlin, loves kickers, so why not? And it is a crazy soundbite when you think about calling your player a serial killer. It's it's not the most positive way of describing someone.
Right?
Yeah,
that specificity of it. It's you could just say serial killer because he's cool under pressure, but no, you literally specifying his pulse rate as a reason is probably accurate, but a little haunting.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to yours. We talked about him in the trades, which didn't happen. I think he wanted to move. So let's talk about your. Listen to your soundbite of the year.
And what did you think of the game? That's more important.
It's just a tale of 3 out of our 4 losses. Teams will shoot themselves in the foot, then we come back and shoot ourselves in the head. So you can't win if defensively.
Basically, Breece Hall saying they don't shoot themselves in the foot, they shoot themselves in the head. And that's probably the best description of the Jets. How come you chose that one, Brian?
I just thought it was a bit, dark humor, I guess. But I just thought it was a real good summation of how the Jets have been this season. I think that I've said this a lot. I don't think the Jets are really a 1-7 team. I think you could swap a lot of their games and there could be a 500 team, give or take. I don't think they've been exceptionally bad like the Titans and Saints have been a lot of the games. But that speaks to what Breece Hall's talking about. The opponent might shoot themselves in the foot and the Jets just come out and shoot themselves in the head. They just can't get out of their own way. The Bucs game was a great example. Aaron Glenn dancing down the sideline, got that meme of him dancing to September, and the Bucs still go down the field and win it. They just can't stay out of their way. And I just thought that was a beautiful summation of it by Breece Hall.
And so this is the last award we're giving out. And it's a man with wise words who, very speaks from the heart. It's Mike McDaniels on how you win in the NFL.
To win games, you have to win the game, not lose the game.
What wise words to end this podcast. In order to win a game, you got to win the game. Who would have thought? The boy genius says it all. So that's the bonus episode. Thank you for joining us. Me and Byron have gone through all the trade reactions and the mid-season awards. Let us know if we've got any terribly wrong or any suggestions yourself. As always, follow us on all the social medias, on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, all of the above at GTW_GTC. You'll find us also on YouTube, Spotify, everywhere where you find your podcast needs. Same again. Look at Good Teams Win, Good Teams Fall. Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover, if I can spit it out, or the name of the podcast is. As always, thanks for joining Byron on this bonus pod, and we'll see you tomorrow for week 10 preview. We're past the halfway stage. The season's
Let's
flying
go.
already. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you later on.